You would think twice before messing with a human after hearing how Space Marine Andrew Young decimated an entire Wagner warship crew with his bare fists, and that was after being shot. It started as a routine human patrol near Wagner space. Andrew's ship detected something on a barren moon, an unidentified ancient alien artifact pulsing with immense energy. His squad landed to secure it, but a Wagner ship led by Commander Xenos swooped in, guns hot, demanding the humans hand it over. The air crackled with tension as the two sides faced off, neither willing to let the other gain such a technological advantage. Trigger fingers twitched over plasma rifle triggers. One reckless Wagner fired, and all hell broke loose. Wagner soldiers swarmed the humans, a tide of tentacles and razor-sharp mandibles. But Andrew and his squad fought with cold precision, cutting through the aliens like a laser through polymer. Wagric blood sprayed as the Marines blasted, hacked, and pummeled their way through the onslaught. 3 humans against 30 angry Wagner. But when the dust cleared, the aliens lay dead as Andrew's crew stood tall. In the chaos of battle, the artifact took a stray shot. It sputtered and flashed, then released a blinding pulse that fried every weapon in a half-kilometer radius. Xenos himself charged at Andrew, hissing with rage, swinging all 6 of his muscular tentacles. Andrew ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding decapitation. He came up swinging, his armored fist connecting with the Wagner's jaw with a sickening crunch. Grappling and trading vicious blows, the two commanders battled, human strength and skill against raw alien power and ferocity. But even with all his natural advantages, Xenos could not match the sheer tenacity of a human fighting for the survival of his species. Andrew hooked the alien's neck in a vicious chokehold as Xenos thrashed and screeched. The human tightened his grip like a vice until the Wagner struggles slowed, then stilled. As Andrew released the lifeless body, the artifact began to glow an angry red, its damaged containment field flickering. He stared into its ominous crimson depths, wondering if even human ingenuity could harness such terrible power without being consumed by it. Meanwhile, news of the skirmish spread like wildfire. The fragile human Wagner peace teetered on the brink as factions whispered of opportunity and called for blood. Operatives raced to reach the artifact as warships burned hard for the insignificant moon, now the flashpoint for an apocalyptic confrontation. And at the center of the spiraling crisis stood Andrew Young, one weary human warrior thrown into an impossible fight against overwhelming odds, a fight that would change the fate of galaxies. But if there's one thing to remember, it's this. Never underestimate the deadliest beings in the universe when you back them into a corner, because if you push humanity's back against the wall, you'll quickly find out why we climb to the top of the food chain and why we're the most dangerous species in the galaxy. In the eerie stillness following the battle, Andrew approached the artifact, its pulsing crimson light painting his battle-scarred armor in a hellish glow. He ran his hands over the alien symbols etched into its surface, his mind racing to decipher their meaning. The technology was beyond anything he'd encountered, and the power it held was both terrifying and alluring. Andrew activated his comlink. Command, this is Young. We've secured the artifact, but the Wagner know we have it. They'll be back with reinforcements, requesting immediate extraction. The response crackled through the static. Negative, Young. That artifact is too important to risk losing. Hold your position at all costs. A fleet is en route to secure it. ETA, 6 hours. Andrew cursed under his breath. 6 hours might as well be an eternity with an army of pissed-off Wagner bearing down on them. He turned to his squad, their faces grim but determined. All right, Marines, you heard command. We're digging in. Fortify the chamber. Set up defensive positions. We're not letting those tentacle-faced bastards get their hands on this thing. They worked quickly, using the moon's rugged terrain to their advantage. They set up choke points and kill zones, planted mines, and salvaged what weapons they could from the fallen Wagner. Andrew pored over the artifact, searching for any clue that could give them an edge. He had a feeling that this thing was the key to their survival. Hours passed, and the distant rumble of Wagner ships grew louder. Andrew's squad tensed, ready for the fight of their lives. Suddenly, the ground shook as orbital bombardment rained down on their position. Explosions rocked the moon's surface, throwing up plumes of dirt and debris. Everyone, into the artifact chamber! Move! Andrew shouted over the chaos. They scrambled inside just as a barrage reduced their defenses to rubble. But as the dust settled, they realized the chamber was untouched, protected by a shimmering energy field emanating from the artifact. Andrew's mind raced. If this thing could withstand that kind of firepower, maybe they could use it to level the playing field. He just needed to figure out how. The ground assault came swiftly, led by a vengeful Xenos. The Wognirs swarmed over the moon's surface, their weapons primed and tactics honed. They knew the humans' tricks now and were ready for them. But Andrew and his squad were ready too. They met the Wognir head-on, their rifles blazing and knives flashing in the dim light. They fought with the fury of cornered beasts, each Marine taking down 3 Wognir for every one of their own that fell. Andrew was a force of nature, his rifle spent, fighting hand-to-hand, Wognir blood mingling with his own. Yet even as they cut down scores of the aliens, more kept coming. Andrew knew they couldn't hold out forever. In a moment of desperation, he turned to the artifact, placing his hands on its surface. He focused his thoughts, willing it to lend him its power. To his surprise, the artifact responded, its crimson light flaring brighter. Andrew felt a surge of energy course through him, and he channeled it outward. A pulse erupted from the artifact, washing over the battlefield. Wognir weapons sparked and died, their shielding flickering out. For a moment, the tide turned as the humans pressed their advantage. But Xenos was not so easily defeated. The enraged commander charged at Andrew, bellowing a challenge. Gone were the ranged weapons and fancy tactics. This would be settled the old-fashioned way with fists and fury. The two warriors clashed in a whirlwind of strikes and counters. Xenos was a blur of lashing tentacles and snapping mandibles, his strength unbelievable. But Andrew matched him blow for blow, his human reflexes and unyielding spirit pushing him beyond his limits. They grappled and pummeled each other, neither giving an inch. Above them, the void of space erupted as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, weapons already firing. But the Wognir ships were right behind them, and soon the skies above the moon became a swirling maelstrom of destruction. And on the surface, 2 commanders, one human, one Wognir, continued their fateful duel, the artifact's baleful light painting their struggle in shades of blood and fire. The battle for the moon, and perhaps for the fate of 2 species, had reached its pivotal moment, and Andrew Young stood at its center, fighting with all the stubbornness and savage hope that made his species the most dangerous in the galaxy. Andrew stared at the pulsing artifact, its crimson glow intensifying with each passing second. The raw power emanating from it filled the chamber with an electric charge that made his hair stand on end. He knew he couldn't let this fall into Wognir hands. "Fuck it," he muttered, tapping furiously at the alien control panel. "If we can't have it, no one will." Energy arced wildly around the room as Andrew initiated an unstable overload sequence. The artifact's hum rose to a deafening screech. He sprinted to fortify his position, stacking debris and activating emergency force fields. Just as he finished preparations, Xenos burst through the chamber door. The Wognir commander's tentacles whipped frantically, his mandibles clicking in rage. "You fool!" Xenos screeched. "You'll destroy us all." Andrew stood his ground as Xenos charged. The human and alien clashed in a furious exchange of blows. Andrew's fists connected with satisfying crunches against Xenos' exoskeleton. But the Wognir's strength was immense, and Andrew found himself slammed against a wall. Gasping for breath, Andrew rolled aside as Xenos' tentacles smashed into the spot his head had just occupied. He swept the alien's legs, buying precious seconds to regain his footing. The artifact's whine reached a fever pitch, cracks spiderwebbed across its surface, energy bleeding out in blinding flashes. "It's over, Xenos!" Andrew shouted over the din. "This ends now!" With a roar of defiance, Andrew tackled the Wognir commander. They grappled at the edge of the energy maelstrom, each trying to force the other into the deadly field. A titanic pulse erupted from the artifact. The chamber imploded as raw power tore through Moon's crust. Andrew dove behind his makeshift shelter, the world dissolving into blinding light and thunderous noise. When Andrew regained consciousness, silence reigned. He crawled from the rubble, coughing up dust. Where the artifact chamber had stood was now a smoldering crater. Of Xenos, there was no sign. In orbit, crippled Wagnir ships limped away, their hulls shredded by the massive energy wave. Human vessels, shields crackling from the strain, moved to secure the area. Andrew's comm crackled to life. "Young, come in. What's your status?" He surveyed the devastation, a grim smile on his battered face. "Mission accomplished, Command. The artifact's been neutralized. Requesting immediate evac and medical support for my team." As dropships descended to extract Andrew and his squad, reports flooded in from across human space. The artifact's destruction had turned the tide. Humanity had proven they would sacrifice anything to prevail. In the days that followed, Andrew found himself thrust into the spotlight. Vids of his exploits circulated on every settled world. To humans, he was a hero who'd stared down annihilation. To the Wagnir, he was a demon who'd robbed them of ultimate power. High Command wasted no time capitalizing on Andrew's newfound fame. They promoted him to lead an elite strike force, tasking him with taking the fight directly to the Wagnir. Andrew stood before his new team in the briefing room of the stealth ship Phantom. "Our first target is a major Wagnir shipyard," he explained, highlighting holographic schematics. "We'll infiltrate under cover of a meteor shower and plant charges at these key structural points." The squad moved with precision as they executed the daring raid. Alarm klaxons blared as Wagnir security forces scrambled to repel the human intruders. Plasma bolts sizzled past Andrew's head as he sprinted down a corridor, slapping explosive charges onto support pillars. "Charge is set," he barked into his comm. "Fall back to extraction point." They fought their way back to the Phantom, Wagnir reinforcements hot on their heels. As the stealth ship blasted away from the shipyard, Andrew watched explosions blossom across the facility's spine. "Look at that beautiful destruction," one of his squad members whispered in awe. Andrew nodded grimly. "That'll put a dent in their naval production, but this is just the beginning." As news of the raid spread, the Wagnir hierarchy flew into a panic. They'd underestimated humanity's commitment, and now they were paying the price. Bounties were placed on Andrew's head, and kill teams dispatched to hunt down his strike force. But Andrew was already planning their next operation, pushing deeper into enemy space. He knew the stakes, for both humanity and the Wagnir, had never been higher. The destruction of the Wagnir shipyard sent shockwaves through their military hierarchy. Reports flooded in of supply shortages, delayed reinforcements, and plummeting morale among Wagnir troops. Andrew pored over intelligence reports in the Phantom's war room. "Their production capacity's crippled," he said, gesturing to a holographic display of Wagnir space. "We've got them on the back foot." His second-in-command, Sarah Chen, nodded. "High Command's ecstatic. They want us to push harder, hit their research facilities next." Andrew's eyes narrowed. "The lab's on Zen 9? "Affirmative. Intel suggests they're working on next-gen weapons tech there. If we can sabotage it." "We could set them back years," Andrew finished. He stood, stretching muscles sore from constant combat. "All right, let's plan this out. We'll need to—" Klaxons blared, cutting him off. The ship rocked violently. "We're under attack," the pilot's voice crackled over the comms. "Multiple Wagnir vessels came out of nowhere." Andrew sprinted for the bridge, Sarah hot on his heels. The main viewport showed a swarm of sleek Wagnir fighters, their energy weapons lashing the Phantom's shields. "How'd they find us?" Sarah shouted over the chaos. Andrew's mind raced. They'd been careful, covered their tracks. Unless— "We've got a mole," he growled. The ship shuddered as a larger Wagnir vessel decloaked, its main cannon charging. "Evasive maneuvers!" Andrew barked. "Get us to the surface!" The Phantom dove towards the nearby moon, weaving through a hail of weapons fire. They skimmed the cratered landscape, the pursuing Wagnir ships hot on their tail. "We can't outrun them forever," Sarah said, gripping her console as another blast rocked the ship. Andrew nodded grimly. We make our stand here. Prep for emergency landing and alert the squad. We're going to give these bastards a fight they won't forget. The Phantom touched down hard, kicking up a plume of gray dust. Andrew's team poured out, taking up defensive positions among the rocky terrain. Within minutes, Wagner dropships screamed overhead, disgorging waves of heavily armed troops. Hold the line, Andrew shouted, his rifle barking as he dropped 2 Wagner soldiers. Make every shot count! The air filled with plasma bolts and the staccato of human gunfire. Andrew's squad fought with desperate fury, their superior training and tactics allowing them to inflict heavy losses on the Wagner forces. But the aliens kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Andrew watched in horror as his soldiers fell one by one, overwhelmed by the sheer mass of the enemy. A massive Wagner, easily twice Andrew's size, strode through the chaos. Its armor was adorned with grisly trophies, human bones and cybernetic implants. It bellowed a challenge, mandibles spread wide. Andrew recognized the creature from intelligence briefings. This was the infamous Butcher of Proxima, leader of the Wagner's most feared hunter-killer team. With a roar of defiance, Andrew charged. He ducked under a sweeping tentacle, landing a solid punch to the Wagner's midsection, but the alien barely flinched, its chitinous hide absorbing the blow. The Butcher's counterattack was lightning fast. A tentacle wrapped around Andrew's throat, lifting him off his feet. Another slammed into his ribs with bone-crushing force. Andrew struggled, his vision darkening as the Wagner's grip tightened. With his last ounce of strength, he pulled a combat knife and plunged it into the alien's eye. The Butcher screeched, hurling Andrew aside. He hit the ground hard, gasping for air. Through blurry vision, he saw Sarah fall, a plasma bolt searing through her chest. As consciousness faded, Andrew felt rough hands dragging him away. The last thing he heard was the Butcher's guttural voice. Take him alive. The torturers will break this human hero. Darkness claimed him, and Andrew knew the real battle was only beginning.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.